Fresh meat.
What's your favorite scary movie?
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Hi, I'm Chucky, and I'm your friend to the end.
This is my boomstick.
Swallow this.
Hi guys, back once again for the Arrow in the Head show. I am Lance Velchuk, of course, my co-host, Mr. John the Arrow Fallon, and special guest today, Mr. Chris Margetis. How you guys
Hey
doing?
guys, how we doing?
Hey, good. How you doing, Chris?
Man, awesome. Thanks so much for having me on the show. This is so cool.
Yeah, you're kind of like the first. We're popping a cherry right now. You're the first guy that dry. You're the first guy that shows up. That's gonna be there. That's from outside the show. That's gonna be there the whole time. So before we get into, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it.
Before we get into the nitty gritty, what are you gentlemen drinking?
I got this across the street. It's called the Brett Lager. It's a barrel aged, 18 months. Little something else. Good. Not too
Brett
bad.
Lager.
Nice. What about you guys?
Johnny boy.
Oh, I gotta show mine first. Okay, man.
That's how it worked, man.
I got Sailor Jerry.
Oh.
Ahoy, mateys.
Ahoy, sailor.
With a bit of Pepsi, just to stretch it out. What about you, kind sir?
Well, even though it's 82 degrees here in sunny Southern California, I am drinking the one and only. Lemmy would be proud of me. Jack Daniel's.
You're going old school, baby.
So
it's gonna be an interesting show.
I'm violating the rule of no brown before sundown. So, but you are too. So, off we go.
Off we go. Well, on that, cheers, you guys.
Cheers, guys.
And cheers, everybody watching, listening, and raise your
Cheers, everyone out
glasses. Let's
there.
have a good time.
Guys, thanks again for having me on. This is great.
Happy to have you, man.
So
Well, we'll determine if it's great by the end. You guys
Yeah.
tell me.
You're out. No, I was going to say, well, the reason we're having you is because we're talking zombies today, and you are a writer and actor in one of the newer ones. Actually, I got to see it at the Flashback Weekend myself over in Rosemont with Sven Gulli, man.
Oh man, that was the probably the highlight. One of the highlights of my existence was not only showing it for the first time in Chicago, but having Sven Gulli there, who's like one of my childhood heroes. And I've actually gotten to know him now, and you know, we communicate a little bit back and forth. And there's a chance we've already been on the show from clips, but there's a chance we may actually be on the show in studio coming up. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. But that night, first showing of the film was, a highlight, man. I can't think of many times in my life that were like that. It was unbelievable. So thanks for bringing it up. And thanks for being there. Even better.
Yeah. It was a good time, man. I'm glad to support local business and a zombie movie all in one.
And of course, the film is called...
Yeah, I was going to say, I'd like to throw out the name, which is the Manson Brothers Midnight Zombie Massacre, which you can catch on virtually any platform where you can rent or buy films at this time: Amazon, Apple TV, Vudu, all that stuff. And currently, we've got a limited engagement that we're doing with Tubi, which has been great so far. And the people at Tubi have been fantastic to us. So if you want to check it out with some ads involved, I recommend going there because you can check it out, and you won't have to put like 12 cents in my pocket either when you do it. So.
Uh-oh.
One of the reasons we wanted you around, other than, you're a very good-looking man and a very affable gentleman, is that we're talking about Return of the Living Dead, Part 1, 2, and 3, which are, well, 2 of them are horror comedies, and Part 3 not really. But, we thought you'd be the ideal guest. So, Lance, take it away, my hairy friend.
I saw this young. I think we all did. I mean, the VHS cover still sticks with me. The punks with the gravestone.
Yeah. Punk zombies. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember renting it, thinking the first time I saw it. I've seen it so many times. I'm kind of going back that I thought it was a sequel in line with Romero's Dead trilogy. And then, as I got older, I realized that O'Bannon was a part of the original, and this was like their way to break apart, which I think is great. The fact that he went a different direction with it, I think, is the best damn thing we could have gotten.
Well, actually, in Return of the Living Dead, the original 1985, they make it that Night of the Living Dead actually was real. It happened.
Oh, because he knocks on the thing, because the whole thing, he goes, the canister in the basement. Yeah, he's like showing off to the young punk. Yeah.
I love the movie. It's funny. It's scary. I like the soundtrack, you know, the Misfits. It's sexy with Linnea Quigley, who's pretty much naked the whole time. And of course, I'll always remember the resurrection scene. Oh, well, I always remember that. Great cast. Tom Matthews, of course, Friday the 13th Part 6. James Karen, Frank Calfa, all really, really great chemistry, funny guys. And that's what I liked about this one as opposed to Part 2, which we'll get into later on. I thought personally that it juggled scares and laughs really adequately, really, really nice. And it made, like, on a whole, a cool, scary, funny, but organically zombie movie, man. And before you guys get into it, just the resurrection scene, like when they come out of the graveyard and shit, like the first time, you know, genius. I just fucking loved it.
I've got a really interesting experience with this movie, and Lance, you kind of touched on it. I saw this at the drive-in when it released originally, so I didn't see it on VHS, anything like that. I was at the drive-in my junior year in high school. I think it was my summer between my sophomore and junior year. I was a football player. And we kind of had this back then, which I found interesting in the movie. You didn't have punks running around with preppies, running around with, you know, whatever you would consider the jocks, that kind of thing, which I found to be a really interesting, you know, dichotomy in the film, was everybody was kind of together. So back then when I watched it, I had this real angst against punkers and things like that so I didn't really dig the soundtrack. To make that story, I watched it this week again for just the second time ever. I don't remember the gal being naked the whole time, which was fantastic, by the way, when I caught it on the second time, which how do you not remember that when you're 15, but you do remember it somehow at 52. I thought the practical effects were unbelievable for the time. Those were fantastic. I agree with you on the zombie scene when they first come out of the ground. My problems with it lie in, you won't get this from my film actually, but I'm kind of a purist in the zombie world. Like, I like slow-moving, zombies. I don't want them asking for more paramedics to come. Or
that was hilarious. I love that.
It was.
Community slash send more paramedics.
Yes, but I think at the time much like you guys, when I first saw it, I thought it was an extension of the other Dead movies, and I had just seen Day of the Dead like a month before, because they released right around the same time. So I was definitely a Romero guy. So when I'm seeing, kind of all this crazy comedy stuff, I don't think I liked it then, but I definitely enjoyed it much more on the rewatch and really, kind of dug into it. Again, I really enjoyed the practical effects. Some of the stuff they did was fantastic. I mean, especially for the time, when you think about it, it was just unbelievable. I
grew up on Hot Shots. I grew up on fucking Leslie Nielsen. And so I dig the comedy in this. I really do. I agree though with John though. I think it as much as I like the second one, I'll defend that like a motherfucker. I wrote a whole black sheep on it. The first one nails the tone. It walks that straight line perfectly. It really, really does. And Quigley, is it Linnea? I've been saying her name wrong. Is it Linnea or Linnea?
It's Linnea today, so tomorrow might be something else.
Well, I will say this, being I didn't see when it came out because I was born. But the beauty of the VHS generation, and especially when I grew up, is that there was no helicopter parenting. There was no, you can't watch this. I just fucking rented whatever I wanted to. I think she's a great actress. Quigley, she was in Night of the Demons. But she's a sex symbol, and she just rocked it out, and I think she owned it, and God bless her, because she made her money and she was smart. But I will never forget when she's like getting all hot and bothered in the graveyard talking about like death, and she just fucking rips her shirt open and starts dancing naked. I've never been more proud to be an American at like 8 years old, But I was gonna say that one of the scenes I like the most is when they call for more brains, because I think it's just so it's dumb, but I mean it's smart dumb though. I think it's that perfect. It's
very smart dumb. And the characters, like I said, Tom Matthews and James Karen and
Frank and Freddie had that cool little I
felt bad for them. I felt bad for them when they got hit with rigor mortis. I felt empathy. I'm like, poor bastards. You usually don't feel for in a horror comedy. You usually don't feel but the characters just came across as real people. So it made me feel for them personally.
One of the parts I kind of did dig about it was there was a period of time in the film when it had a really, one of my favorite movies is Assault on Precinct 13, the original.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time in that film, people show up and they're kind of, hey, what's going on? And then they're just, mobbed, right? And the same thing went on with this movie the whole time. Anytime anyone showed up, they're just butchered within like 10 seconds. That was kind of cool to see. I thought it was really good. Again, the effects were, for the time, just unbelievable. I was shocked watching it again.
The Tar Man, that's the nickname they gave
yes.
it. Yeah.
Yes.
That zombie guy there. He scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. Now he just reminds me of my ex. But when I was a kid, he scared the shit out. Scared the shit out of me. But this one holds a special place in my heart. So guys, if you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor, get a 6-pack, bunch of buddies, and check it out because it's a fucking blast.
Yeah, 100%. It's worth the view for sure.
All right, well, I guess that brings us to Night of the Living Dead 2, which I know has been quite...
Return of the Living Dead.
Return of the Living Dead 2.
You're fired.
What the fuck is with this guy? Who is he?
I apologize. I was thinking of the old ones, I guess. Return of the Living Dead 2, which is a black sheep of the series, I believe. I didn't realize it was as hated as it was because when I saw it as a kid, I just rolled with it, and I get why people don't like it, but I'm gonna start off if you don't mind. All right, here's the deal. First one walks that tightrope perfectly. I will completely admit that. But the 80s and 90s had this weird thing where they always made a couple of random sequels more lighter. I would argue Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 was a great example. The first one's like a violent noir. The second one's like the cartoon.
Gremlins 2.
Gremlins 2 is another great one. I would actually argue this matches Gremlins 2 closer, except for Gremlins 2 is more of a meta parody on the sequel itself.
Is that a term, meta parody?
He made that up.
I mean, it's a meta parody, though. It is. It's making fun of it. Yeah. But no,
I consider myself to be fairly high up on the vernacular list, and I've never heard
vernacular
before.
What's going on today?
Wow.
Can I not invent words? I don't know. Either way,
I'm out of here, guys.
Basically, took a lot of the same actors and made a similar movie. Only
Tom Matthews and James Cameron come back as different characters.
Yes, but they have the same buddy sort of relationship, and it's played more for laughs. It's more slapstick. And I'm going to say this: it's not as good as the first one. I like it. I've defended it before. I argued, and though I have no proof of this, so I hope I don't get sued. It has that sort of cocaine sequel where somebody high up was lit off their ass and was just like, well, we need more, and this has that sort of vibe of it.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
I truly think sequels like this are best viewed sort of from afar, meaning that like if you grew up at the time and experienced this live, I could see why you would hate it. But if you could look back as like, okay, this is a weird little entry that did its best. I feel that this is more authentic to the original than part 3, and I like part 3 as well. But this to me feels like a sequel to the movie, even if it is essentially the slapstick version of it. I think the effects are still pretty goddamn good. I think the gore is toned down. That would be my big issue. But I think the makeup looks good. I think the effects rock. I think
You got to take it as more of the
Hot Shots version of Return of the Living Dead. I do. John, you know, yeah.
I'm just biting my tongue, man.
I'm getting ready.
The director, Ken
Wiederhorn.
Thank you. Directed Meatballs 2. So I'm not kidding. So it all makes sense.
I did not know that.
The only way I could see myself enjoying it is if I'm really messed up and, fill in the blank on what I'm messed up. That's the only way I could see myself remotely enjoying it. It breaks a lot of my rules when it comes to horror movies, although this is not one. It's not a horror movie. Number one, it does the slapstick, pratfalls, zombie coming on the grave, yawning. Michael Jackson from Thriller shows up for some fucking reason. Right there, I'm out. I'm not 2 years old. My affinity in terms of comedy is not that level. And, comedy is incredibly subjective. What's funny to one person is not funny to another. So, I don't give a shit. But for me, it wasn't funny. For me, it's pathetic. The effects were pathetic, too. They look like rejects from the Muppet Show. Dude, compared to the effects of the original, and it looks like a fucking Muppet with a hand up his ass,
It's not easy being great.
They bought at the dollar store, Fuck that shit.
Yeah.
Another thing that I fucking hate in horror movies is when they put a fucking precocious kid in the lead.
Okay, I won't fight you on that. I'm not going to fight you on that.
Which was the case here. The only saving grace for me in terms of that movie is that Tom Matthews and James Karen return, still have the same chemistry, the same, banter, and they're really interesting to watch. But overall, outside of the fucking art cover, which I always liked, fuck that movie.
He's a bunch of fucking jerk-offs. Do you know that?
So I'll start with the positives, which were, I agree that the two actors that came back, I have no idea why they came back because they died in the first movie, presumably.
They played different
had great
roles.
Chemistry. I don't remember the name of the actor who was the younger guy.
Tom Matthews.
I'm shocked that he didn't become a bigger star. He somehow got much better looking between the two movies. And I say that with a staunch record of heterosexuality. But he looked like a movie star in the second movie. And I didn't think he looked like a movie star. I used to
call that guy the Paul Newman of horror.
Yeah, he looked a lot like Paul Newman.
Yeah.
So I was surprised that his career didn't take off more than that. So yes, I thought they did a good job. But let me preface by saying I saw it for the first time 3 days ago. And my wife, who's a major horror aficionado, has read reviews from the Arrow from years ago on some movies that I haven't even seen. She said to me afterwards, because I was kind of lamenting, honestly, watching the series again, or watching the first one again, because I had told her I didn't like it. And she said to me, well, how was the second one? And I said, the second one makes the first one look like Citizen Kane. They decided they wanted to make Goonies with less interesting children. And then, listen, I'm all for leaning into the comedy when it's time to lean into the comedy. But this thing almost kept me from watching the third one. Dude, I was doing everything I could to get through this thing. And it's an hour and a half of my life I'm never going to get back. In spite of whatever minor, positives there were, I would not advise anybody watch this movie unless they were picking between this and like random hearts maybe or something. I don't know.
Random hearts? What the fuck?
Yeah, like if you're deciding between, if you like blood and guts and it's this or a rom-com where people die in a plane crash, I'd go with this maybe, but I don't know. First off, the one thing that they could have pulled from the first movie, which they didn't because it was a kid movie, was just a naked chick running around all the time. Like that, that's going to keep anybody engaged. Sorry. Semi-naked women who are out there watching.
Return of the Living Dead Part 3, directed by the great Brian Yuzna. I personally loved it. It was a return to form for the series. The couple, which was played by Mindy Clark and J. Trevor Hedman, good actors, layered characters. You bought into the love story. You even bought that the male lead, Trevor Edmond, played by Trevor Edmond, was flawed because, giving her the gas. The chick, actually, by the way, guys, if you haven't seen it, the couple, girlfriend dies. The boyfriend uses the zombie gas from the canisters there to bring her back to life. And what I liked about that is that he's selfish. It's a selfish move on his end. And you don't see usually these types of layers.
Hold on a second real quick. What was that stuff called? The 2,4,5?
Trioxin is the name of it.
Trioxin,
wasn't it?
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway. Viagra, no?
I have to remind myself that some birds aren't meant to be caged. Their feathers are just too bright.
I actually think it was patterned after the original name of Agent Orange in Vietnam. So anyway,
maybe.
I did my research. I got ready.
But it's all good.
I'm not anymore.
I just got that one. Sid and Nancy, Romeo and Juliet with a zombie angle. I love the masochist angle that they took, where, for her to not feel craving for brains, she has to hurt herself and pierce herself, which I thought was really cool. Like I said, the characters are likable, layered. You buy them as a couple. Practical effects were fantastic. The gore was great. If I had any peeves, it would be the middle section. The bulk of it takes place in the sewers, which for me is never unless there's a fucking Ninja Turtle involved. It's not an attractive setting. And there's always one scene that bothered me from it. And I don't know the names or anything, but there's a bunch of hoodlums. They're like stereotypical Latino hoodlums. And one guy, to kind of serve his demise, because that's what happens, he sees Mindy Clark, who's all zombified. She's got shit to her face, her arms and everything. And he's trying to nail her. And then he gets whacked. But I'm like, brah, hey, you're in the fucking sewers. B, have you seen this chick? She's a zombie with shit all over her, man. And suddenly this guy's popping boners and he's got to have that ass. And I'm like, that makes no sense whatsoever, man. But overall, for me, I enjoyed it and I recommend it. It's not at the same level as part one, which for me is like, hallelujah. But I like it.
I watched Return of the Living Dead Necropolis.
Why?
Yeah, why?
Well, I'll tell you why. It was on Tubi for free.
Sign it in. Yeah.
I love you, Tubi. Thank you. So anyway, I happened to be booking around Tubi one night, and I saw it before I got to 3, so I thought, okay, well, I'll watch this because it's on here. Peter Coyote, you know, yet another film that should probably be stricken from the annals of filmmaking. So I begrudgingly went to 3 the following night thinking, oh my God, man, if this is the next one up, this is going to be horrible. To my amazing astonishment, I really, really enjoyed it. I'll take it even further than you, John. Is it Mindy Clark? Is that her? Yeah. She was Terrence's wife in Entourage.
Melinda Clark.
Melinda Clark, I'm sorry. And she was hot, so sorry I had to say it. Also, Colonel Walter Powell from Charles in Charge, which I watched every day in college. So, and he was like right out of the gate one of the first characters in the whole film. So it hooked me immediately. So I'm going to go into a bunch of movies that reminded me of. It had a very Aliens vibe where a ton of stuff took place in hallways that were kind of quarantined in. I agree with the whole Romeo and Juliet premise. Here's one I connected with it about, and I think you guys may have done a show on this a couple of episodes ago. It was a lot like Deadly Friend in that this guy, his girlfriend dies, the girl dies, right? And he's going to do anything he can to bring her back. So,
I agree. Right, Lance?
Is there something about Deadly Friend that I should know about?
Yeah.
Never seen it.
Never seen it, yeah.
No. What, Lance, you've never seen it?
There's fucking a million movies out there.
I'm kidding. No, I'm not. I saw your show. I know you haven't seen it. How did you not see Deadly Friend?
Because it's better than you see first.
Dude, he's never seen Deadly Friend or Shocker.
But those are both a shocker.
I will get to Shocker first. Deadly Friend will be in the fucking back burner. I'm sorry.
Dude, it's a great movie.
A great movie.
It's a great horror movie. Wes Craven. Anyway, so let me keep going. I also thought there was some kind of Reanimator too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
When the Latino guy comes out with his spine out of his head, and there were so many elements of this movie that connected me to other movies. If you took number 3 and you took number 1 and you gave them both $50 to $100 million and James Cameron is the director, I think number 3 is a blockbuster movie. It had a lot of great elements to it. I kind of enjoyed the whole thing. And I agree with your assessment, John, too, where, you know, the kid was selfish. He wanted his girlfriend, right? She was the greatest thing that ever happened to him. And he was willing to let anything happen to have her back. Oh, and she had kind of a Hellraiser thing going on, too. And she's, you know, ripping everything through herself. I really thought there were a lot of cool elements to this movie. And I don't know if anybody ever saw it, but I would suggest if you're thinking about watching a film that is a good hour and a half of good horror fun with some good practical effects. I didn't dig the sewer scene stuff, but I thought the guy who played the homeless guy did a great job of kind of conveying what they were going for. So I really like this movie, and I'm if anything of doing this show and rewatching these films and or watching them was number 3 for me. I had a great time watching it.
What about you, Lance?
Well, I feel like this is the one we're all agree on, actually. So here's the deal. I call it the Bowie catalog because I'm a big fan, but I guess we could call it anything else by nature. But when anything changes directions aggressively throughout a tenure, I always think living through it might not be the best, as opposed to like looking at through a catalog perspective, like jumping between things quickly. So the reason I bring this up is because number 3 was a VHS cover I remember forever. I saw it late because the VHS cover is of Julia with all the glass in her face, and it's like a side angle. As much as the first 2 have these great paintings, this was pretty aggressive for.
It had sexiness.
Yeah. It was like, but it had that Hellraiser thing where it was like body horror. So I didn't see it until maybe I was a teenager, maybe a little bit later. The only thing I could really add is that I think it's the one entry that feels like it's tacked on in terms of being a part of the series. Because Brian Usna, I like him a lot. He did obviously one of my favorite sequels, which we'll talk about another day. But this movie was aggressive, it was mean, it was violent, it was everything the others weren't. There's no humor, and like you said, it was a love story. It kind of reminded me personally of Carnosaur, steeped in 90s culture of the fucking haircuts, of the love angle, of just the whole thing. It's just so goddamn 90s. I love it.
I don't want to interrupt you, Lance. Hold on real quick though. I got to ask you guys, when you see the scene like I'll call him a gangster guy, the Latino guy, but his neck is extended because it's gotten ripped off, right? And it's poking through the hole. Do you consider that comedy? Because, people look at Reanimator like it's a comedy.
You have a light smile, but I'm not, slapping that knee and
but that
crying.
Reminded me of this from a kind of like, oh my God, this is so off the wall.
Like The Thing.
It's almost,
like The Thing had a lot of what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? So
it did, but the tone was so much different that these.
That's true.
And I agree with you, Lance, that this was just a in name only, sequel.
But the movie played it razor straight, and I like that because it's its own thing. This isn't a Return of the Living Dead movie, as far as I'm concerned. I don't mind it being in the pack because anything after this sucks. But as a Brian Usna zombie movie, I think it's amazing.
After part 2, the insult to any real horror fan. No, I'm fucking with you. No, but for me personally, after part 2, part 3, and there's no cemeteries. It breaks away from the basic structure of part 1 and 2.
The whole time, everything.
But at least
it sticks to the military thing.
At least not a fucking joke.
Well, Brian Usna, if I could say anything.
Yeah, Mr. Usna.
I guess that brings us to recommendations. I'll start. All right, well, here's the deal. What I'm doing is not going to be. I'm not going to go small. I'm not going to go independent. I'm not even going to go in a way that might be unique. I'm going to argue one of my favorite sequels that people should like more. And I swear this will be the hill that I die on, which is going to be Bride Reanimator. Speaking of Brian Usna. Yeah, well, you and me agree. Maybe the internet should get on the same page because I swear.
I agree with you too. I like that.
People don't. This is one of those where it pulls the Terminator 2. It gets crazier. It's weirder. The effects go all the way. It's more action packed. And yes, I love the original Reanimator. I love Barbara Crampton. Who does not? But man, does Bride Reanimator not kick some serious ass? Makeup effects again. Usna, I think, is a great director. Underrated dentist to this. We talked about Return to Living Dead 3. I won't spoil it, but I'm just gonna say, imagine the original Reanimator only amped up on cocaine.
Well, hold on. I gotta tell you, if you ever watched the documentary about the making of Reanimator, they went with the idea of more is more. That was their whole plan. if the scene called for 3 55-gallon drums of blood, they went with 10.
Wait, talking about
everything they wanted to do for one. For number one. So when you see Bride, it's like, and when you say it's amped up on cocaine,
I think so.
Yeah, they tried to make the original that way.
What about you, Chris? What's your zombie movie recommendation?
Have we talked about the Manson Brothers Midnight Zombie Massacre yet? Did we talk about that yet?
I've never heard of that. Is that a zombie movie?
Never heard of it.
It is.
From the 80s?
No, it came out in 2021, I think. That's my shameless plug.
Who's gonna forget Thump Hansen? They're the last of the old school hookers. Not to mention you trained the Manson brothers.
You're an icon, Thump. You got the most prophylactic career in professional wrestling.
No, in all seriousness, recommendations, I would say, if you haven't seen The Girl with All the Gifts yet, it's a zombie film. It's a UK-based zombie film. I'm not a huge fan of the ending, but the remainder of the film is fantastic. It's got quite possibly one of the greatest scenes I've ever seen in a movie in my life. It's worth the watch. It's one of those that it's kind of a big budget. Have you guys ever seen Doomsday?
Yeah.
Before?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that a zombie
from
movie?
New York ripoff? No.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sticking with zombie films, what I would consider zombie films. I would recommend a movie called The Devil's Rock too. It's not a zombie movie, but I would go with Doomsday, which I think is it's another one of those movies that yes, it's a ripoff, but it's an entertaining ripoff. Rona Mitra super hot. I'm sure we'll
Neil
talk
Marshall
about that.
direct.
Yeah. It's a good movie. It's got some great actors in it as well. Can't believe I'm spacing out on it right now.
All right, have another shot at Jack. Bro.
I will, and then I'll think of his name. But yeah, it's that those two would be my recommendations. But I'd go with Girl with All the Gifts because it's kind of it's an unknown, very serious
You can't beat Glenn
zombie
Close.
apocalypse film. It's a good one.
For me, it's really hard to find. I actually have a rip of the laser disc on a DVD. It's from 1989, and it's called Night Life. And it stars Scott Grimes, who was the kid in Critters.
Critters 1 and 2.
Yeah. And he works at a mortuary with his uncle. And there's these bullies, like the jock, the cheerleader, the hot chick, and everything like that terrorize them for like pretty much the first act of the film. And they get in a bad car crash, and they wind up at the mortuary. So he's like tending to their corpses and everything. And of course, there's like a storm that goes down and brings the bullies back to life. I always called it the Lost Boys of zombie movies. It just always reminded me of the Lost Boys. And actually, I'm 99.9% sure. Actually, you know what? I'll go 100%. And guys, your listeners, viewers, whatever, if I'm wrong, call me on it.
Yeah.
I'm going to go
Definitely
100%. I'm 100% sure. There was a scene in Nightlife that was shot on the exact same bridge from the Lost Boys where, they're hanging. 100% sure. I was going 99.9, but I'm not going to cover my ass. My balls are telling me that's the case. So you let me know. But Nightlife, really hard to find. The VHS cover was shit. They basically dumped the movie. I knew about it because I read it in Fangoria at the time. And I was looking for it. And finally I found it on VHS. And I really enjoyed it. And it's a movie that nobody knows, that never got the attention it deserves, and it's a pretty good zombie movie. So yeah, recommended.
I guess everything's pretty good. So Chris, I guess me and John want to thank you for stopping by. I appreciate
it.
Guys, no, thank you. Thank you for having me. This has been awesome. I get to see John without a tank top on, and I get to see
You're a dick.
Lance with a couple buttons missing from his shirt. Lance, by the way, I wear my shirts the same way when I wear button down.
As you should.
And I want you to do me a huge favor, please, between the next time we see each other. Go rent Deadly Friend and watch the movie. Christy Swanson. That's all I'm asking.
Guys.
Yeah, now.
Guys, once he watches Shocker, it's such a epic of an event that we're going to do a whole show about it.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for this motherfucker.
Can we take
bust his balls in comments? He loves it. All right?
Can we take a super quick pause?
Can we watch?
You guys will know this. I don't. Actually, John, you'll know this. Who's the guy who played Shocker?
Mitch Pileggi.
What's Skinner from X-Files?
Yeah.
He's in Return of the Living Dead 2.
What?
Yes.
At the end, he's working the 50 cal on the zombies military.
Really?
Guys.
Skinner. Yeah, you're right.
Well, when in doubt, Skinner.
How better to wrap up the show than with the Skinner sighting?
Mic drop.
Uh-oh.